Streaming live, tackling the topics everyone's talking about online. Share, engage, interact. This is Newsfeed Now.
And a good Thursday. Welcome to Newsfeed Now. Got a big show. Right now, a lot of the chatter on social media talking about the Ukraine, about a phone call, and about impeachment. In fact, there is a committee meeting that continues right now, well into the third, possibly fourth hour of this committee meeting. You're taking a live look right now. We're going to get into this meeting and what it means. We're going live to Washington, but we've also got some other things to get to, including a creepy clown on the side of the road. We're looking at the border of the United States and Mexico, and we're going to wrap up with our weekly look into the National Football League. But again, let's start with Washington, D.C. For hours, again, 3 to 4 hours right now, the acting director of the National Intelligence Committee is testifying at a committee hearing. Congressional investigators released the whistleblower complaint that started an impeachment inquiry. This against President Trump. The complaint goes well beyond the controversial call between President Trump and that foreign leader, alleging that President Trump used his office to solicit foreign interference in the 2020 election. Chris Pallone has the story.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony...
Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph McGuire testifies before the House and Senate Intelligence Committees today. He arrives just hours after committee members finally read the whistleblower report, which ultimately spurred House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to launch an impeachment inquiry against President Trump.
I have upheld my responsibility to follow the law every step of the way.
Moments before the hearing, the House Intelligence Committee released an unclassified version of the report.
We were presented with the most graphic evidence yet that the President of the United States has betrayed his oath of office.
The unidentified intelligence officer wrote that more than half a dozen U.S. government officials provided information that the President of the United States is using the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 U.S. election. The letter names the President's attorney, Rudolph Giuliani, as a central figure in the effort, and Attorney General Bill Barr appeared to be involved as well. The whistleblower complaint reportedly stems from the President's dealings with the leader of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, and a July phone call in which White House notes show Trump asked Zelensky to investigate his political rival, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Biden's son. The request came right after Zelensky said Ukraine intended to buy more American anti-tank missiles. The president and his allies scoff.
They don't want answers. They want a public spectacle. And so we've been treated to an unending parade of press releases, press conferences, and fake news stories.
No push, no pressure, no nothing. It's all a hoax.
But Republicans are not totally unified in support of the president.
All right, Bri Jackson now joins us. You were about to hear there from more Republicans. But as we're looking at this, Bri, it was scheduled for 2 hours. Right now, we're well into the third hour. Actually, I think we're into the fourth hour now. What has the response been so far from politicians as they've watched this, and how long that it has gone?
Well, the response has been almost what we expected. Democrats are really pressing Joseph McGuire about why he withheld this information, why he withheld the whistleblower complaint from members of Congress. And then on the flip side, we've seen Republicans standing firm, saying that this is a political show, this is being politicized, and that it's a media show, that the Democrats are playing to the media, and that they're not going to find any wrongdoing here. So we're really just seeing, we're seeing people take their sides in this issue so far.
I've watched much of it this morning, listened to quite a bit of the beginning of it. It's been on at my desk. But one thing that was interesting to me was the president's response late yesterday afternoon. It seemed, I don't want to say muted, but he had a very different demeanor than what we are used to seeing from the President of the United States. Did you notice that, and what do you attribute that to?
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. We were talking about that here in D.C. There's a lot of breakdown to that. The president definitely seemed to not have as much energy as he typically does when it came to that news conference. Some people contributed that to the fact that he's there with world leaders and has all this pressure coming out of Washington, D.C. And so some have said that it was just him being tired. Others have said, that it's concerning, that he's just concerned, and it's something that he may not know how to deal with. So only the president knows what was going on there, but there are a lot of assumptions when it comes out of his demeanor yesterday.
Before you go, what else is on the timeline? What are we looking at next in this inquiry?
Well, you're really looking about one thing that we hope doesn't get missed, or it seems like everyone hopes doesn't get missed, is election security. That's something that the acting DNI director said. This is about election security regardless to who's interfering. That remains a major concern. So you may see some people going into the election security, what the intel community is doing to protect our election in 2020 moving forward. But then you can also see some Democrats trying to use this hearing as a way to move forward with their impeachment inquiry.
All right, Bri, thanks so much. Appreciate you taking the time. I'm looking into our control room right now. This is still going on, again, into its third hour now. Does not seem to be slowing down. You're taking a live look right now as Joseph McGuire continues to testify in the first step of what is this impeachment inquiry. We're going to continue to watch that. Of course, we'll get updates from Bri when we can, but right now, let's move on. We're about 5 weeks away from Halloween, and already it seems no matter where you go, you're finding something, as my daughter says, spooky. But take a look. For one Arkansas teen, it was what he saw that really started him. He grabbed his camera. We're about to show you this video. It's a creepy clown. 18-year-old Braden Ledford was heading to one of his favorite spots with a friend when he saw this. Here's the video. A clown digging a hole.
I'm personally afraid of clowns. I watched it too and I was like, no, I can't do this. I had to leave the movie. I think a lot of people are afraid of clowns, and that's why this thing should not be a joke.
Esparza joins us from Little Rock. Michael, this type of stuff just pops up ever so often. What do we know? What was the clown digging for? Did he lose his bag of tricks?
Well, what the gentleman tells me is that he didn't stick around to find out what he was digging for or digging up. Yeah, basically he pulled up with his friend, saw what he appeared to be a person dressed up in a clown suit digging on the side of the road with a shovel.
Wait a minute. It didn't appear to be. There was a clown digging.
Well, I mean, we don't really know. There was no police report that was filed or anything like that. He just saw a man with a shovel on the side of the road going at the ground. So was he trying to cover up something? Was he trying to look for something? Maybe he lost his red nose. Who knows? I don't know.
Now, it looked like that this was not your normal, everyday, wide open spaces highway. This was maybe a back road. That's the thing that kind of freaks me out a little bit, was that if this clown was getting kicks out of people recording him, he would have been on a highway. This seems to be off the beaten path a little bit.
Yeah, it is off the beaten path, but apparently during the day it's really busy. A lot of people go there to fish. It's a very popular lake that they go to in Russellville. So.
Did you try to track down the clown? What is the clown saying this morning?
You know what? I looked around. I didn't see anybody dressed as a clown. I looked at the area. There didn't seem to be anything that was, the ground wasn't messed up with too much. But yeah, no, we didn't find a clown though, unfortunately.
What's your favorite clown? Who's your favorite clown?
Bozo.
Yeah.
Bozo the clown.
Well done. I'm proud of you. I didn't know you would go there. You're quite a bit younger than me, but I'm really proud of you for saying Bozo the clown. Well done, Michael. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Time to check in with our team from BorderReport.com. They are 4 days into a 10-day travel, showing us the entire length of the U.S.-Mexico border. This time they're near Nogales, Arizona. Border rangers showed us the barbed wire fence that separates their land from Mexico. Anna Warnicki has more.
Literally on the other side of that bollard-style fence is Mexico.
Several miles up the mountains in Nogales, Arizona, Dan Bell says his ranch meets Mexico.
We've been neighbors with our fellow ranchers in Mexico for three generations.
But Bell says the only way he knows his property versus his neighbor's property in Mexico is this barbed wire fence. Where I'm standing right now is literally where the border fence changes from steel to barbed wire, and local ranchers say they're having to maintain it by themselves.
We've gone in together with them to rebuild sections of the fence, put brand new fence in that was over 70 years old.
Bell says the fence is there to keep his cattle from going into Mexico, but it doesn't stop people from trying to cross over into the U.S.
The border is south, and it runs clear across.
Bell's neighbor down the road, Robert Noon, says he sees people on his ranch all the time, but he considers himself lucky because there's a buffer between his ranch and the border.
The thing about my location is I'm close to the highway, so it's much easier access for the Border Patrol to to patrol it.
Santa Cruz County Sheriff Tony Estrada says about 1,000 Border Patrol agents patrol the 50-mile stretch between Nogales and Mexico.
That is a lot of presence here along this border.
Estrada says Border Patrol focuses on the rural areas, like the acres of ranches right outside the city, because that's where he says more people try to illegally cross. For BorderReport.com, I'm Anna Warnicki.
Anna, thanks. Steffi Lee is a producer on this trip. She joins us now live from the border. Steffi, as we were looking at that, and the ranchers that share that Mexican border with ranchers on the other side in a different country, what is their mindset on maybe building a bigger wall, on putting up more fencing, on putting up steel like the president keeps asking for?
You know, from what I've gathered with that, I think right now this is already a lot of work for them. It takes a lot to maintain. You know, in addition to that, it's not only this barbed wire fence. The rancher that Anna interviewed yesterday, later on in his interview, you know, he talked about issues where he deals with the water systems. You know, he knows that people try to cross over. The biggest issue here is the rough terrain, right? And the weather. It's so hot, it's humid, it's dry, it's really difficult. So he deals with the water systems. He puts water faucets out there just to make sure that if migrants do come across, that if they want to have some water to drink, they have clean water to drink. That is another aspect outside of this barbed wire fence that he deals with. So, you know, I think that they've probably talked a little bit about, you know, what are some other things that we can do to sort of deal with cattle and making sure that they're enclosed, but that's already a lot to maintain, and that's a big task for them right now. It comes at a cost.
Now, in the story, the ranchers were saying that they do see quite a few people on their land. Are they okay with the influx of folks going back and forth, or maybe just one way across their land into our country?
You know, I think that's a tough question. They realize that this is where they are. You know, this is where they live. This is where their land is. And so they recognize that that's a thing. But the Santa Cruz County Sheriff also spoke about how the county partners with Border Patrol, and they have this program called Stone Guard. So Border Patrol has a lot of agents that deals with this issue along the border in Nogales and in their local communities. And so I think they realize that there's a partnership there, and for these ranchers right now, you know, their land is a priority for them as well as their cattle. They recognize that there is an immigration conversation that's going on, but for some of them, they also have land that separates them, you know, sort of like a buffer in between. So.
Steffi, we've talked to Austin and we've talked to Anna on this trip so far. For you personally, has this been eye-opening? What's the one thing that you've learned about this trip so far as you're nearing the halfway point?
Yeah, so I landed in Tucson yesterday and we drove to Nogales, and now we're here in New Mexico. And I think what's been the most eye-opening for me is just seeing the different groups that we've been reporting on, seeing kind of what we don't necessarily see in day-to-day life, right? And so that's been eye-opening, and just kind of understanding. You know, we've been through a few checkpoints going through. And, you know, that's something I expected, but kind of seeing just how close we are. And we drove from Nogales to New Mexico yesterday. And we're pretty close. You know, there is about 50 miles of the border that Nogales touches the USMexico border. And, you know, Julian here has been reporting about tunnels and, you know, what homes along the border have been dealing with that. So little things like that are eye-opening. It's things that we don't necessarily think about, but it's things that these people are, you know, reporting or seeing in their day-to-day lives, which is why we're reporting.
Yeah, they're dealing with it every day. Cool stuff. Steffi, thank you so much. Much more on the Border Report right here on our website. All right, so it's Thursday, so that means it's time to talk football. This week's NFL game, actually probably everything that I've seen, the biggest game of the week. That's rare for a Thursday night football game. It's Green Bay hosting the Eagles. Let's bring in our friend Jack Doles. He joins us each and every Thursday here on Newsfeed. Now, Jack, let's break down this game. I kind of like the Packers in this one. I think Aaron Rodgers is playing well, but it's very rare that we see such a good game on a Thursday night.
I know. And this is a big matchup, and it's especially big for Philadelphia, who just lost to Detroit. Now they're sitting there at 1-2. They cannot afford to start this season, Aaron, 1-3, because Dallas is really good. I was able to go to Dallas last week and check out that game in person, and they didn't play their best. They still wallop the Miami Dolphins, who are just awful. But Dak Prescott, what they've got working right now in Dallas offensively is really fun to watch. And Philadelphia is a team that's really banged up, and they're trying to just kind of survive at this point of the season.
Yep.
But if you fall to 1-3, you got problems, and they're in danger of doing that. Green Bay's played really well. Defensively, they're as good as I've seen a Green Bay team, especially up front there. The additions they made in the offseason were really good, and they've been one of the surprise defenses in the NFL this season. And, of course, you have Aaron Rodgers, who's just, he's not putting up the mind-blowing numbers, but he's making throws and doing things in this new regime there under this new coach, LaFleur, that it's very impressive.
I think it'll be a fun game tonight, without a doubt. I'm going to stay up a little bit too late. It's the first game that's going to be seen on Fox, so everybody can watch it, whether you have the NFL Network or not, in 2019. About 45 minutes away, you've got your big digital show, The Big Game. What are you focusing on this week?
Well, a couple of the games we're going to focus on, who would have thought that Patriots-Bills in Week 4 would be one of the big matchups, right?
Yeah.
But there's New England, of course, looking like a Super Bowl champion in the making again, maybe a team that can run the table. And the Buffalo Bills at 3-0. They've beaten three, teams that haven't won a game, but they've won, which they weren't doing before. And Josh Allen, you're seeing growth in that young quarterback. We're also going to have Ty Halleck break down the big game between the Detroit Lions, are you kidding me, and the Kansas City Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes is doing things on a football field I'm not sure I've ever seen. So Ty Halleck will talk about who he reminds him of, which player currently that's out there. And then we'll just break down that game. The Detroit Lions 2-0-1.
That's interesting.
That tie at the beginning of the season was a head scratcher because it was against the Arizona team you didn't know much about. They had that game completely in control for 3 quarters. But Aaron, they've come back and they've beaten the Chargers, and then they win on the road in Philadelphia. Those are 2 really high-quality wins. If they somehow find a way to beat Kansas City in the Dome in Detroit, that city is going to be crazy.
That team's for real in the NFC, without a doubt.
I won't call them for real yet because these have been 2 really ugly wins against good teams. And that division right now, Aaron, is 9-2-1. So the Bears play Minnesota. We'll see a little separation there this week. Green Bay's 3-0. The Lions are 2-0-1. And then you've got the Bears and the Vikings at 2-1. So no team in that division has a losing record. It's one of the strongest divisions in football this year. We expected it to be. I'm not sure we expected it to be at this level because I don't think anybody really thought Detroit would win more than 5 games.
All right, you also have a fantasy breakdown. There's a lot of people that play fantasy football. It continues to get bigger and bigger. With this new show, how often are you asked, should I trade this player for this player?
I'm getting a little more of that.
I thought so.
My colleagues at the office, and we'll take them all. Every question you guys can send in, we'll try and get answered.
Okay, so here's my question for you today. Here's my question for you. I got a buddy who is trying to get rid of Saquon Barkley, who is hurt for 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain, and he wants Mark Ingram straight up for him. I'm on the fence right now. I think Mark Ingram in Baltimore playing really good football, and I don't know if I could sacrifice a running back position for 4 to 6 weeks just to possibly get a second best player who may or may not come back at full strength.
No, I wouldn't touch that trade with a 10-foot pole. You tell him to come back to you with that offer when Barkley comes back.
I like that.
I would not give up Ingram right now. Boy, he is a beast.
Can I offer you a trade right now?
Fantasy numbers.
Can I offer you a trade? Can I offer your clean-shaven face for my near grizzly face?
For Arkansas, no.
Yeah, so if you're just tuning in, I'm not shaving my beard until Arkansas wins an SEC game. I haven't touched a razor in like 3 weeks since they lost to Ole Miss. I don't like the odds this week against Texas A&M, but listen to this, Jack. If they don't win against Texas A&M, they have a bye week. So I have 2 more weeks before a winnable game against Kentucky.
And then, you're calling Kentucky a winnable game. I would have thought Kentucky was a winnable game, 4 or 5 years ago.
Easy.
But that Kentucky program's on the upswing.
Yeah. Well, here's my promise to you, my friend. You and I are going to the Olympics in Tokyo here in about 9 months. and I have put on this bet that it's the end of the season or a Razorback win. So you don't have to put up with this.
I think that's weak. I think you should have said Razorback win, and we could have seen how I could have done some trimming of the beard out there. And
but what would Jerry Walsh say if I left this growing till Tokyo?
You're fired.
Here you go. Look it, Aaron. Look it. You can't. Jerry Walsh, who runs our Olympic team, he's one of the big wigs at our company. He loves saying "look it." Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
Jerry, look.
Well, he wants us to see things. Right?
Look it, Jack. I appreciate what you're doing, Jack. I'm joking. All right, we'll see you in a week, buddy. Thanks for taking the time.
All right, thanks, Aaron.
All right, Jack Doles. Make sure you stay tuned right here on the website to watch the big game with Jack Doles. I'm going to tune in for that one. I'm going to get all the knowledge I need on fantasy football. Betting is now kind of legal across the country, so maybe you could get a few tips on how to bet games. Jack will help you out with that as well. That's all the time we have on this edition of Newsfeed Now. Have a fantastic Thursday. See you right back here on a Finally Friday.